With me now, Katie McFarland. Katie, the UN Security Council is going to meet today about this Ukraine situation. We've just heard that China's UN ambassador says he will vote against a public meeting. What's the significance of that?
I think it's very significant because the two key players in this aren't really the United States or even Ukraine. It's Germany and it's China, because China has basically said, look, Ukraine, we don't really care. Russia, we believe you have the right to have your territory include historic Russian nations like Ukraine, and we are going to help you to do that. That's in exchange for what the Chinese are going to expect down the road, which is the Chinese are going to say the same thing about Taiwan. To say Taiwan is historically part of China, and so therefore we want Taiwan to come under the Chinese fold. So the two of them are in cahoots. I mean, they're helping each other get what they want, which is expanded territory.
The Ukrainian ambassador, Oksana Markova, warning of the implications of a Russian invasion. Katie, just watch this, please. Roll it.
And I believe nobody is safe if Ukraine will be attacked. We want to be sovereign, we are sovereign, and we are fighting for our independence. And if Ukraine will be further attacked by Russia, of course they will not stop after Ukraine.
Okay, that's what happens in Ukraine if the Russians invade. But what about Putin? Surely he risks a lot by invading, doesn't he? He'd be hit with sanctions. I mean, the locals could give him a very hard time. I mean, he's got risk too, hasn't he?
Yeah, and the sanctions, I don't think the sanctions are going to be tough enough. We've already sanctioned Russia about as much as we could. The only sanctions that would matter is if the Russians were not allowed to sell their oil and natural gas to Europe. And that's not going to happen because Europe depends on Russian oil and natural gas. As far as kicking Russia out of SWIFT, out of the world banking system, that's not going to happen either, again, because of German especially, but kickback from Europe. So what's Putin up to here? He's got all the leverage. He's made a lot of threats. He wants NATO to roll back. The Russians have said NATO should roll back. And the Germans, the only country that really matters in this circumstance, the Germans are sitting it out on the sidelines. They don't want to fight for Ukraine. They're not going to give weapons to Ukraine. They're just going to let Ukraine be on its own. Ukraine is not a NATO member, so they're not obliged to help Ukraine. The Germans aren't. But the question is, and what that Ukrainian foreign minister was saying, is that what's next? Is Putin going to be satisfied with Ukraine, or is he going to move on to other countries that used to be part of Greater Russia? And most importantly, it's the three Baltic countries. They're small: Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Russia could take those in a day. I've been to that border. It's called the Suwalki Corridor. Russia could take that in a day. And then what would happen? He would present NATO with a fait accompli. Where is Germany going to be? Is Germany going to endanger its energy over another fight with Russia? Will NATO be fractured? So I think this is so much bigger than just Ukraine. It's NATO, it's China, it's really the globe.
In your opinion, do you think Putin will invade?
No, I don't think he has to. I don't think he wants to, for the reasons you pointed out. It could be messy, it could be protracted, he could lose world public opinion. I think what he does is he's got the leverage, all the leverage he needs. He's already gotten the Germans to say they don't want anything to do with this fight. I think what he does is forces a coup in Ukraine, and then a new leader comes into Kiev who's pro-Russian and basically under Russia's domination. That's the solution that Russia would like. Frankly, it's a solution a lot of Europeans would like. It gets everybody out of the hot seat.
Not a good ending, though, is it? Not a good ending.
Not a good ending for Ukraine, no.
No. Okay. KT, fascinating. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again real soon. Thank you.
Thank you.